In today's video, we're going to be doing a step-by-step in detail guide how to build a portable power system that could potentially power your entire house or a critical loads panel in an emergency situation. And we're going to build that with either off-the-shelf parts from your local hardware store, or you could get everything online. All right, this video is actually recommended by you guys, the viewers, due to all the crazy storms that we've been having here in the United States and it knocking out the power. All right, so before we get started, just understand this video is probably going to be really long because you wanted a step-by-step, in detailed guide on how to build a portable solar generator. So having said that, there's going to be chapters down in the timeline. If you need to skip around, you can. All right, like I said before, you can pretty much get everything from Amazon. However, I'm betting you probably have a few things on hand that you could use for this build. And of course, if you forget something, you could probably just get it from a local hardware store, you know, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, Home Depot, etc. All right, so during this build, keep in mind there's probably a million different ways that you could do things, add things, so basically you just decide what you want. Alrighty, so in my build, I'm going to be using the 48 volt Orient Power 6500 watt 120 volt inverter that is solar, generator, and grid compatible. It's also UL 1741 certified, if that matters to you. All right, the battery we're going to be using is kind of like its match pair or match set. It's the 48 volt Orient Power 100 amp hour or 5.12 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. This one's not UL certified yet, but here shortly it will be. All right, with this system, you could actually power pretty much everything in your house that is 120 volts if wired correctly, like medical equipment, all your lights, TV, fridge. Most importantly, minus the medical equipment, is your gas furnace, which is really important to me in the wintertime. You could keep that going to keep you warm. It will not power a full-on electric furnace. You're going to need another inverter and quite a few batteries to keep up with that load. And honestly, if you're going to do something like that, you might as well just get a permanent installation. And one quick side note for the inverter and the batteries that, well, we all use for these solar generator hand truck builds, they're typically used in an indoor installation, you know, where it's dry and everything. You don't want to leave anything like this outside in the rain. Okay, enough of that. Let's get started. All right, next thing is the hand trucks, and obviously we have two different options here. There's going to be pros and cons about each one. This one was a little bit cheaper. It's from Harbor Freight. It was probably $65 or $75. Over here is an aluminum one from Amazon, and I think I paid around $115. Basically, you just have to figure out which one's going to be the best for your project. And keep in mind, we're going to be adding a lot of weight to these. So some quick pros and cons between the two. The tires, these are pneumatic, and these are like a plastic and a hard rubber. Pros for the pneumatic, because it makes everything softer. You can go across the ground a lot easier, you know, like through the yard. One of the big cons for me is in an emergency, if you have to cart this thing around, you might have a flat tire. For these, you don't ever have to worry about that. Cons about this is it might not travel through the yard very much if you're going to be dragging this around outside. I personally haven't done that yet, so I don't actually know. The base on this style right here is quite small. The base on the aluminum one is almost 18 inches wide, which is kind of perfect for the battery that we're going to be using. So if you have a smaller battery, you know, maybe you can opt for this one. The handle up there on top, this one over here is a D-style handle, and the aluminum one has two handles with rubber grips. Another pro for this one came with the little stair strip down here, so we should be able to drag this up and down stairs easily. This one over here does not have that. So if you don't have to go up and down stairs easily, then maybe you want to choose this one. For our project, we're going to be using this one. All right, here's going to be most of the items we're going to use for our install. Like I said before, some of these things could be optional, depending on what you want to do. So right over here, we have some 1/2-inch flexible conduit with a couple of fittings. Again, you could use whatever fittings or conduit that you want. Right over here, we got a couple of feet of 6 AWG wire. This is THHN. And then I also have a 10 AWG ground wire. Next to that, I got some 4 AWG battery cables. Right over here is the output. And for this one, I went for a 25-foot 12-gauge extension cord with the 3 outlet side. This one is rated at 15 amps, and I went with 15 amps for a reason, and I'll explain that later. We're also going to be using one of these power strips over here. Honestly, I'll probably use the white one because I've already clipped off the end right over here for another project. But you could use whatever you want. If you want to add USB charging, etc., you can just get the power strip that you want. And right over here, we got a little tiny circuit breaker box that we're going to add some circuit breakers to, so everything is protected and safe. The circuit breakers that we're going to be adding in there is a 50 amp circuit breaker, and then I also have 2 16 amp circuit breakers. The only reason I went with 16 amp on these two right here is because they didn't offer a 15 amp circuit breaker in this brand. But for our application, it should be just fine. Right over here, we got a couple of cable glands that we're going to be attaching to the box for our outlet wires. The size can vary depending on the wire size that you use. I just have 2 here because whenever we assemble it, we'll just figure out which one we want later on. Inside the circuit breaker box, it did come with a couple bigger cable glands, which we may or may not use, and of course it came with hardware, etc. to mount it. Right down here, we have a couple different options to mount the inverter and the battery to the hand truck. I'll probably use a combination of both, but right here I have an assortment of self-tapping screws, and I've got 4 moving straps. And one other thing that you could add that is optional is the solar panel extension wires. Honestly, we probably won't use it in our installation, but we'll have it here just in case. And right up here are some of the tools that I could think of right offhand that we'll need to build our projects. So we have a cordless drill, drill bits, 2 screwdrivers, a box knife, wire strippers, and a step drill bit. All right, first thing I gotta do real quick is pull out the screws on this top cover and rotate it around because we need all the battery cables and connections and cats to be flipped around whenever we put it on the hand truck. I mean, we could use it upside down if we really wanted to, but I am going to flip it around. And just FYI for you guys in the future, if you are buying this specific battery and you do want to rotate the lid, you should be able to do that in the future because they're going to basically clock it so you can do it either direction. For mine, it's not technically made for that, so I'm gonna have to do a couple of modifications, but in the future, you won't have to do anything other than take out the screws and turn the screen if you want to do that. You gonna help? I don't think you're gonna want to help with this part. Just be careful pulling this off because you might have a whole bag of cats under here. All right, so the reason I gotta pull this off is I need to manually extend these wires for you guys in the future. You won't have to do that. You can just rotate the lid. Boom, there you go. Should be good enough for what we want to do. Okay, perfect. Yep, still works. All right, one other quick little modification that I did is I just added some foam down here on the bottom to cushion the battery. This is just some of that stuff that you would put around your workbench or something like that. I just had a small spare piece, so I cut it out to fit on the hand truck. If you didn't have any of that, you could use wood, or you could possibly use the foam that came with the inverter or the battery. Step 1 is putting the battery on the hand truck. Obviously try to center it as best as you can. Boom. All right, next step is mounting the battery to the hand truck, and like I said before, you could probably do this a million different ways. For our installation, we're gonna be using the straps, so we're gonna be going through the handle on the side and wrapping it around the hand truck frame right here. So, go right through the handle, around the hand truck, push the tab and open up the jaws and put in the strap. Before you tighten this down, you do want to make sure the battery is centered on the hand truck. So we'll do the other side real quick and then we'll tighten them up. For the excess strapping, you could either cut it off to make a shorter piece, or you could just do what I did and roll it up and shove it in behind the mounting bracket. Just in case you ever take this thing apart, you still have a working strap. For the upper side, I went with 2 straps, although you could probably do 1 in like an X pattern. I just went with 2 because it looked nicer. And same thing for the straps. I just left them long, rolled them up, and put them down next to the other ones. And if we grab the battery and try to move that around, it is not going anywhere. All right, next thing we can do is lay this down so we can install the inverter. Before we put this on the hand truck, I just want to pull off this little cover right here so we have access to all the AC and DC connections. And that's just 5 screws. We got 2 over here and then 3 right down here. All right, open that up. We're also going to disconnect these 3 cables right down here, and to do that, we just pull them directly out. Kind of center it as best as we can. For my distance right here, it's not too critical. Really, the only critical part is having enough room to insert our solar panel MC4 connections, all right? So as long as we have enough room down here, we should be good to go. All right, and here's where it gets a little tricky. We might have to do a little tiny modification. So as you can see, the mounting holes do not line up with the hand truck, so we're gonna be drilling a couple tiny holes and using some of those self-tapping screws. And same thing for the upper side. I'm gonna drill some holes into this bracket right here on both sides, and then just go right into the top of the hand truck. All right, so for this one, these wires are kind of in the way. So the MC4 connections right here, there's like a little tiny panel right here with 2 screws, and all will come down, and then I can get this wire out of the way before I drill that hole. All right, so for this side right here, I sanded it down to bare metal, so whenever we put our screw through there and into the aluminum, it'll bond the metal from the inverter to the hand truck. There we go, there's one. There's two. The only thing I'm going to do different up here is hit it with a punch since we're so close to the top of the inverter here. If we try to drill at an angle, the drill bit's going to walk. All right, now we can lift it on up. Nice. All right, so then we can take our cable glands and put them right up in the holes for the battery cables. I am going to take these channel locks to tighten them down. Go negative battery cable. And we'll just loop the excess behind the battery. This one also came with the little battery terminal covers, so I'm going to put those on as well. And obviously the next one is the positive wire, same thing. Boom, battery cables are connected. All right, next thing we're gonna do is tighten down the cable glands, and we're gonna try to get them as tight as we can get because the rubber inside is gonna squeeze the wire, which is basically gonna act like a cable clamp so we can't pull the wires out. So what we're gonna do now real quick is just determine the length of our flexible conduit. So all I did real quick is just install one of the cable glands on the flexible conduit, and this one was from the circuit breaker box that we got from Amazon. So we're just gonna feed it behind the hand truck, install it temporarily. All right, so we're just coming right out the back, and then we're gonna go up and we're gonna be mounting our circuit breaker box right here. And all I'm gonna do is just figure out the best routing real quick, and then we'll go ahead and start drilling some holes. I might actually just do mine sideways and do that really tight elbow right here. Yep, I think this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do mine sideways. I think the hardest thing for me is gonna be getting the wires to this really sharp bend right here. So here we go. Boom, there we go. Honestly, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. All right, next thing we're gonna do to the box is drill a hole. Let's get my rough location. Boom, hole drilled for the conduit. Now we just gotta drill some holes for the other two gland nuts. And I will probably, honestly, just put those both down here on the bottom side. All right, got my holes drilled. We got one over here for the AC input, and then we got two holes down here on the bottom for the AC output. All right, back over here on the hand truck, I'm just gonna figure out exactly where I wanna put this and then drill the holes real quick. Actually, if I drill in the center of these holes right here, I should be good to go. All right, for this particular circuit breaker box and that particular hand truck, there's some little markings inside the box that perfectly line up with the hand truck. So I just marked them with a marker, and I'm gonna drill those out. And we're pretty much gonna do the same thing over here on the hand truck. We're gonna center it as best as we can, or basically wherever you wanna put it, and then mark the holes and drill it. And for this hand truck, we don't have to worry about drilling into the inverter because the other side is solid, just like this. All right, here's where we're at so far, and I'll explain exactly what we've done. So we have the conduit right here that goes around. The two 6 AWG wires go into the double pole breaker right here on the top side, and then exit out the bottom side, go underneath the DIN rail just because it was a little more convenient to go that way. And then we have the black wire in this bus bar, white wire in this bus bar. For those of you that are worried about this being too close, you could actually remove one of these bus bars and put it right down here. The only reason I didn't do that is because the 6 AWG wire is pretty tough to bend, and that's kind of close down there. So I just left mine up here. Again, it's 120 volts, it should not jump. And you also may be wondering why we have a double pole circuit breaker, because we don't really need to break the neutral. I just did it for a main shutoff. So if you don't want to do that, you could actually replace this double pole with a single, just like one of these right over here. Just get a 50 or 60 amp circuit breaker. And of course, we still have our ground wire to attach. I was going to try to use one of these fancy connectors, but of course I don't have the right size, so we'll probably just use a wire nut. On the other side, I just left around 6 or 7 inches of wire, so we have enough for the inverter. All right, now we can install the circuit breaker box. There we go, nice and tight. We can route our wires underneath the inverter. And on this side, we can install right through the gland nut here, and then we can strip back the insulation as much as we need, which really isn't a whole lot. All right, when connecting these, of course, they always say to hook up the ground first. I'm gonna attempt to hook up all of them at the exact same time. And of course, you wanna get every single strand in the connector if you can. And now we can tighten down the cable gland right here, and that'll be our restraint, just the same as the two over here. All right, now that the circuit breaker box is on, we can start working on our AC output and input wires. Again, like I said before, I'm gonna use this white one right here because I had already clipped off the end from a previous project. For our AC input and output, we're gonna be using this extension cord right here. Kind of sucks about this is we're going to be cutting a perfectly good extension cord. But anyway, we'll get past that and move on. We're basically going to cut this right down the middle. All right, quick explanation why I chose a 15 amp extension cord versus the 20 amp extension cord. The reason I chose this one is because not everybody has a 20 amp outlet throughout their house. The 20 amp outlet, this one right here is a 20 amp outlet. And this one is a 15 amp outlet. Sorry it's so dirty, but it's just a representation. So not everybody has a 20 amp receptacle throughout their house. You can almost guarantee that everybody has a 15 amp outlet pretty much everywhere in the house. So that allows me to plug this one in anywhere in the house, like right here. Boom. This is the part that sucks, cutting a brand new extension cord, but we're gonna get past that and just cut it. Snip. All right, so down here on the inverter, we're gonna wire the AC input, and obviously that's the side with the plug and then the side that we cut. So we're just gonna get a quick little measurement right here to figure out exactly where we need to cut. I'm gonna probably cut off 2.5 to 3 inches of the insulation here, and I'm gonna do that very, very lightly by just pushing down on the insulation with the razor blade. Don't push down very hard so you don't cut the wires on the inside, okay? Strip that off. Strip back a little of the insulation on each wire. For the AC input, the gland that we're going to be using is a PG21A. So we can slip our wires through here, slip the wires through the inverter, put our jam nut over the wires. Technically, you could do this in any order right here. Give our wires a twist, and then install them just as we did right over here, starting with the ground wire first. And then I'm going to tighten down the gland nut. All right, on the back side for the circuit breaker panel, we're going to start wiring the AC output. So we're going to grab that extension cord that we cut in half. So for this wire, we're going to be coming off of one of the circuit breakers right here. So we're going to just set the wire up in here for a rough wire length. All right, so we know how much insulation to strip off. We'll pull that off of here, put the wires through the gland nut. We're gonna just tighten that down so the wire can't fall back out. The hot wire is gonna connect to this side of a circuit breaker so we can get our correct length here, and then this extra little bit that we're gonna cut off, we're actually gonna use it on this side to go from the circuit breaker down to the bus bar right down here. Strip back the insulation. And I'm just going to go in an S configuration like this. Slide in the wire, tighten down the screws, and one end's going to go into the circuit breaker right here. Tighten that one down. All right, then we can strip off this side, and now we can go into the circuit breaker on this side. White wire is going to go up to this bus bar up here. Strip back the insulation, tighten those screws down. And of course, go ahead and tighten down your gland nut nice and tight, which is going to act as a cable strain. All right, so it's not coming out. All right, next is your power strip, and of course you can mount that wherever you want or hang it wherever you want. For mine, I'm just going to sticky tape it right to the top. If that doesn't work, then I'll let you know later on. All right, back down to the circuit breaker, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. So I stripped off all the outside insulation to the rough length that I'm going to need. Put the wire through the gland nut, and we'll go ahead and tighten so the wires don't move. All right, once that's tightened down, we're pretty much going to do the exact same thing as we did with these wires over here. So the power strip wire is going to be connecting to the bottom side of this circuit breaker right here. All right, and then this little strip right here is going to connect to the top side down to the bus bar. And actually, before I connect that wire over here, I am going to connect the neutral wire to the bus bar right up here. And you don't have to be a gorilla tightening these down. All right, now we can bring that to the circuit breaker right here and tighten that one down. The other side. If we really wanted to, we could actually get another bus bar. It wouldn't be exactly like this, but we could get one from Home Depot or Lowe's or Amazon or anywhere else and attach that over here. However, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to be using a wire nut to attach all three of these together. All right, here's one final look over. You can see exactly how everything is wired. All right, well that pretty much buttons this up. We can go ahead and put the cover back on. This circuit breaker box also came with these little tiny O-rings that you could put inside each one of these standoffs. However, I already lost one. I'm pretty sure a cat ran off with it, so I'm not gonna use those. All right, now that the cover's on and we didn't use all slots, this circuit breaker panel did come with the little extra covers, so you just snap it off for however many you need and pop them in. There we go. Nice and neat. All All right, so up here on top, I just wrapped the extra extension cord around the two handles, and then my little power strip up here, the wire goes around the side. I put a zip tie right here and right here for some strain relief. And then for the lower side coming out of the circuit breaker box, this extension cord, I added 3 zip ties right here for a wire restraint. And then the same thing for these right over here, 3 zip ties for wire restraint. I guess technically if you had some clamps, you could use those there. I just had zip ties, so that's what I used. And one other thing I did do real quick off camera, since this is such a tight spot getting the camera and me in here, I just made up a little ground wire to bond the frame to the battery box. So now everything is bonded together. This isn't anything special, it's just a little tiny piece of ground wire that we used earlier and 2 ring terminals. All right, just a quick little example of everything being bonded together. So we're on the continuity check. All right, so we'll just go up here to one of the ground lugs up here for this green wire. So of course if we touch over here, that's grounded. Battery cable is not grounded because it shouldn't be. Go back to the frame, we're grounded, and then the case of the battery. So everything is bonded together. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick before we close up the inverter is I never hear in anybody else's videos whenever they build these hand trucks is physically grounding the inverter and the hand truck right back here. If you truly wanted to do that, you wouldn't do it with this screw right here. This is more of like a static bond that bonds the inverter to the frame. If we were actually going to physically ground this to use it out in the field, you know, like out in the middle of nowhere, what you would want to do is use a number 6 wire like we used over here. You could probably get away with a number 10, and we would physically bolt that down to one of the inverter grounds, like this screw up here, possibly one of the 2 up here. Take that number 6 wire and physically bolt it down to the hand truck. And then what you would want to do from there is physically bolt down another number 6 wire to the frame. It doesn't have to be the exact same point, it can be anywhere attached to it, and run a number 6 wire over to a ground rod that is driven into the ground. Obviously we're not going to be doing that in this video, I just wanted you to be aware. All right, we're pretty much done. The only thing we got to do is put this cover back on, power it on, and make sure everything works correctly. Probably have to recharge the battery, and then we can use it. All right, so we'll connect our cables right over here, put this guy back on. Boom! All right, we are finally at the moment where we can power this beast on. All right, circuit breaker on. All right, no explosions. Power button for the battery. All right, screen down here did light up, and actually we might be full charge, so that's great. All right, now we can turn on the inverter. No explosions, that's good. All right, LCD screen lit up. We got our little LED bar right here. It's gonna cycle through all the colors, and now we are fully powered on. All right, first thing we're gonna do is go into the inverter settings and change a few of those so everything is safe for our use, and then we can go out and use it. All right, so over here on the inverter, if we want to get in here and change some of the settings, we're going to long press the enter button right over here for about 3 to 5 seconds. Once we're in the menu, this is where you can change all the settings to match your setup. All right, so basically you're just going to want to go through the manual and configure it as you see fit. But a few things that we do want to change right off the bat is how we want to use the inverter and battery setup. So for me personally, I'm going to leave it on SBU for solar, battery, and utility. If you wanted to use this as a UPS, you would press enter to change it. And once it starts flashing, you can hit up or down to change it to utility, solar, or battery. I'll probably leave it on SBU so I can use it outside. So hit enter. Option 2 is the maximum charging, and that's solar and utility. So for this one, I probably wouldn't go over 90 amps with a single battery. Honestly, I'd probably lower that. All right, the next one that I'm concerned about is option 11. The reason we're kind of concerned about option 11 because that's the maximum we want to be able to charge from the grid, and we chose a 15 amp extension cord, and we do not want to exceed the amp rating of that extension cord. Granted, this one does have 12 AWG wires, so we could potentially fudge a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and do the calculations right here. So if we do 120 volts times 15 amps, that gives us 1800 watts. All right, so if we take 1800 watts divided by 51.2 volts, because that's the nominal voltage of the battery, we get approximately 35 amps. All right, so basically we're going to set this one in between 30 and 40 amps. I guess the little fudge number is you could probably get away with 40 and be just fine. However, we're going to leave ours on 30. All right, and then like I said, you'll probably want to go through the manual just to get an understanding of all the settings in here and set it according to your needs. So I'm not going to be going through all the settings in here. That could be a whole nother video all by itself. However, I will go up to option 16, and that's how you want to recharge the battery. Right now this is set on solar only. So if we want to change that, you could recharge it through solar and utility. I'm going to put mine on CSO for now so we can charge with 30 amps from the grid. All right, we're going to go ahead and start testing stuff. So we're going to turn on our main circuit breaker and then our individual circuit breakers. All right, you can see the little light came on right up here. That was from this circuit breaker. All right, so we do have 120 going to that one. Turn that one on. The little light came on. I'm just going to check the output voltage up here real quick. Awesome, 120 volts. Let me pull off the extension cord. We want to check this outlet here and 120 volts here. I'm going to take this end right here and plug it right into the grid down here. Let me change the setting real quick to go to grid. That's option 1. We're going to change it from SBU to USB. All right, now we're in bypass mode and now we're charging at 30 amps. All right, I'm going to bring the camera down here so you can see exactly what's going on. I'll unplug it as well too. All right, so what I did real quick is long press the enter button, press down to option 1, and I changed that to USB. That's all I did. Let me escape out of there. And from here on the screen, you can see we're basically just running off of the battery. So you have the battery right there. It's converting DC to AC. And then we have our 120 volt outlet right there. All right, so I'm going to plug it into the grid real quick. And now we're in bypass mode. And here in just a second, there it goes. Now we're going from AC to DC to charge the battery. All right, and then we can press up or down over here and we can see exactly how much we're charging. All right, so we're recharging the battery from grid at 30 amps. And that is 1.63 kilowatt. All right, our limit was 1800. So we could technically raise the charging a little bit, but for our purposes, it'll be just fine. All right, we're gonna do a quick little example just in case maybe you were using this to power medical equipment. Maybe you're in a place that loses power quite often and you needed some sort of equipment to stay powered 24/7, all right? So we're just gonna use a light bulb so I can show you easily. I'm gonna just plug into the power strip right up here. You can see the light bulb is on. I'm gonna go ahead and unplug it from the grid. The light's gonna stay on. There was a little flicker there, but light is still on, so if you're powering something important or critical, you can continue powering that as long as the battery holds out, or maybe if you have solar, you know, you can do both at the same time. So there you go. That's a pretty nice feature to have. That would be the UPS mode, or uninterruptible power supply mode. Oh, and here's another test to see if my sticky tape works. Yeah, it works. All right, so sticky tape is okay. All right, now that we know that it's working, let's plug some stuff into it so I can show you exactly what we can power. All right, some of the things we're gonna power as I've done in other videos. All right, specs for the air compressor, 115 volts, 14 amps. It's a 2 horsepower or 2.5 horsepower peak. Next is a 10-inch sliding compound miter saw. Specs for this, of course, is 120 volts, 15 amps. Of course, we're gonna be running this unloaded because we're in my house, so I don't need to cut any wood. And then we have the good old space heater. It's 1500 watts on low, and I believe it's 1800 watts on high. So for all the big loads you want to power, you want to use the extension cord with the 3-prong outlet if that's what you chose to use. All your little things, obviously you're going to use the power strip right up top. All right, so first we'll do the heater and turn it on low. Works just fine. Put it on high. Works just fine. We're at a 23% load, 1.5 kilowatt. All right, so 1.5 kilowatt from the heater. Next, we'll do the 10-inch sliding compound miter saw. Again, it's going to be unloaded, so we don't get the full effect, but that's okay. I think it'll be just fine. All right, here we go. Powered that just fine. We'll go again. All right, obviously the last thing we'll do is the air compressor. Here we go. That's a 1.31 kilowatt load. All right, it powers each one of those just fine. So actually, if you're out on like a job site or whatever, you could use any one of these, no problem. And another nice thing about having the power strip up here is you got this nice flat surface that you can set your phone or whatever on to charge it. Boom! All right, there we go. I guess the only thing we need to do now is try to drag it up the stairs and bring it outside and see how it rolls in the yard. Actually, before we do that, we're gonna hook it up to some solar panels right over there and recharge the battery. It's kind of heavy. There's some weight to it, but it rolls nice. All right, we'll turn this on and check the voltage. All right, so we're sitting at 131.4 volts on this array, which should be just fine, even though we could go up to 250 volts. We're gonna try it with this. This is our negative. Hook up here. This one will be our positive. And of course we do have the second set right over here if we needed to add more panels. All right, I'm gonna flip the circuit breaker on. All right, there we go. We are recharging from solar, and you can see the LED is actually changing colors. I really like that. All right, so if you can see, our MPPT showed up right here, so we're recharging the battery. And we can scroll through and see how much we're actually charging. I think we're on PV2 right now. There we go. So we're at 99 volts, and we're putting in 15 amps. Nice. 1.48 kilowatt. So our input is 16 amps, which is converting it to 27 amps on the battery. And if we look down here on the battery, we're sitting at 54.89 volts, 22 amps. I'm going to go into the cell voltages to see those. You can do that. Looks like we're all sitting at 3.4, so nice and balanced. There is also an app that you can get to connect to the inverter, and it's called Watch Power. Basically, you just set up an account and assign it to the inverter, which I did in a previous video, and I don't know if I ever showed it. So here it is on the screen. This is what basically shows up on the first page, and at this current moment, you can see we're connected to PV2, and we're doing 99.1 volts. We're charging at 1670 watts. Battery voltage is 55 volts. We're pretty much full charge. I think we're just kind of topping it off right now. Related information. I'm pretty sure you can change most of this stuff in here as well. Yeah, you can go to parameter settings and basically change whatever you want to do in here. So that's kind of neat. And of course you can see the screen on top. It shows you exactly what's going on. We're charging from solar, charging the battery, and going out to the load. So that's pretty cool. All right, we're finally full charge. We're going to shut it down and attempt to bring this up the stairs. Turn off the inverter, turn off the battery, and turn off the circuit breaker, just in case. I mean, it does roll really nice, I'll say that. The weight might get us. All right, here we go. Hopefully the lighting is okay. I'm gonna go up the first step. Oh, that's not too bad. All right, we got her up the 8 stairs. Now we're on the little platform. Now we can go outside. All right, nice and easy. So now that I'm coming out here, you could actually recharge this with a generator if you really need to. All right, let's go this way. I mean, you can. I mean, it's heavy, of course. You can push it, it's probably easier to pull it. Yeah, you could do it either way. So if you had maybe an electric chainsaw, you could come over here and cut all my wood for me. So yeah, there you go. It's not too bad. It does go through the yard fairly easy. Actually, it's a little easier if you just drag it like this. Not bad, not bad at all. Again, it's heavy, but doable. And like I said at the beginning of the video, where you could technically power everything that is 120 volts in your house, which you could do, all you would need to do is wire a generator cord to the back of this, you know, out of the circuit breaker box, a small one because you wouldn't need a long one, and run that over to another box that's on the side of your circuit breaker panel right here. That could be wired in, very similar to my off-grid setup right here. You would wire that to a double pole circuit breaker right here, and have a generator lockout switch. Basically what a generator lockout switch is it only allows you to power your house or this panel by one source, either by grid or by your portable solar generator right here, or for me, my off-grid system. Basically what happens is whenever the grid goes out to power your house is turn off the main circuit breaker, lift up on the generator lockout switch, and turn on the circuit breaker right here. And then from there, you'll be powering your house from your solar generator right here. So now you can power pretty much anything you want for the next, well, whatever. All right, so just a quick pro-con list about this whole setup here. It's quite heavy. If you're gonna be moving this thing around outside, you know, through the yard a lot. I mean, I do like this hand truck right here. However, I would get the one just like this that offers the pneumatic tires. That'll allow you to cruise around outside wherever you want. But on the flip side, if you're gonna be on mostly a hard surface, this thing works flawless. It rolls smooth, it's great. Yeah, you can go up and down stairs, but again, since it is really heavy, I mean, you're not gonna wanna do this all the time. However, if it's in an emergency, you need to get it upstairs, it can be done. For like the inputs and the outputs, obviously there's a cattail. The options are endless. Also, a quick side note, for a system exactly like this with a 100 amp hour battery and a house like mine that's 2,500 square feet, I can run everything in the house that's 120 volts, for around 6 hours. And that's not conserving anything. So that's 2 refrigerators, 10 to 15 LED lights, a 60 or 65 inch TV, my gas furnace, and all the other crap that's on. Laptops, phone chargers, clocks, all the phantom power stuff. I can do all of that for 6 hours and not conserving anything. And that's with my system over there. I have a 12,000 watt grow watt split phase inverter. It's huge and it sucks a lot of power just sitting there. This one will go a little bit longer because it's more efficient. So if you're in an emergency situation, you know, and you conserve, obviously you can go much longer. All right, so everybody of course wants to know the price of everything, so I've got everything written down here so I don't mess it up. All right, so the inverter, $1,180, battery, $1,649, hand truck, I think I paid $115 for that. Circuit breaker and circuit breaker boxes all together, $50. I think it was a little bit less than that. The little cable gland pack that I got, $10. The flexible conduit, I actually had that on hand. I bought it from Lowe's, but you can get it from Amazon, and I think they're around 26 bucks. The cargo straps were $12. The little pack of assortment screws, that was $7. The power strip up here, of course I had, it was probably $7 from Walmart. Again, you can get that on Amazon for super cheap. The 12 AWG extension cord I got from Harbor Freight. Again, you can get that on Amazon. That was $24. The 6 AWG wire that we used, I think I had about 3 feet. I did have that on hand again, but you can get it at Lowe's by the foot. It's like $1.42 a foot. You just get whatever you need. You can get that right on Amazon. And the 4 AWG battery cables were $15 for a grand total of $3,113. I would say that's not actually too bad in my opinion for what you get and what you can do with a system like this. Of course, I do have a discount code for the inverter and the battery. I think it's like 5 or 8%. It drops your price maybe 150 bucks or so, so you're actually under $3,000. I don't know. I would say that's not too bad for what you get. All right, well, I think that's pretty much all I got. I think the video's gone on long enough, so I'm gonna wrap it up right here. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you know, about this system, I would love to hear about those. Actually, I'd also like to hear if you guys are building a system similar to this. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. You know what you're using and what you're using it for. And you know what? I'm also interested in hearing about your guys' power outage stories and how you got power back on. Did you have something like this already? Did you use a gas or diesel generator? What did you guys do to get power back on? All right, that's pretty much all I got. Don't forget to like that smash button if you thought this video was helpful and because it would help my channel with the algorithm. And I will see you on the next one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 6 hours straight. That's just THHN where? Yeah, where? Where's my screwdriver at now? Screwdriver is gone. Is long press of the enter. Basically what we're gonna do now is wait for that van. It's not gonna fall over, is it? Hope not.